Before we begin, let us take a few moments to worship the Supreme One, the infinitely compassionate One, the winner of the infinitely long journey in samsara, the one that waged war against his own defilements and was victorious. So let's take a moment to worship and to strengthen our pledge to attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. To do so, let's take a few moments to chant the Namaskara 3 times all together and with me. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. On our journey to Nibbana, we meet amazing people. And if you look among yourself, you have all these amazing people around you. And we all join together as one. You can almost imagine it as one big family, where one person will, with their whole heart, not half-hearted, with their whole heart help the other. For what? For the purpose or the aim of the entire family. And what's that? Nibbana. Because of this, we are all one family working together to do the same thing. Although our journey is all individual, that we can't help or we can't make someone walk the path, but we can help them. So not just those in front of me, those online, listening on YouTube and wherever, they are all part of one family. That's why it's called the ministry or the Buddhist Sasana. We are all part of one. And that's why when something happens, it is almost a duty that we have to tell you and remind you and do all this. So, although you all may know, there may be some online that may not know about what had happened to our family in the last week. So, for those of you who don't know, last week, after almost 7 years of our monastery, we had our first death. Now, of course, death is a very normal thing because everyone dies and so on and so forth, but it is a devaduta, or it is something to think about. Because I have the great fortune of talking to so many people and across the continents. And some of them tell me, right, Swaminatha, like, I really want to come to the monastery. I really want to do this, I really want to do that, because in their heads, that's what they want. They come to the monastery, they attain Nibbana, and that's their story. As if they feel as if coming to the monastery itself is victory. It is. But not the victory. So, last week when I got to hear the news, I had almost, it reminded me Because when we talk about someone's life, all we can do is talk. Because we all have lived so many years. And you've all done things in our life. But all that will be left is what we can talk about. So we can say, this person, he was like this, she was like this, they did that, they were such a great person. But that's it. Nothing more. We can no longer help them. We can no longer, if they need anything, we can't go and ask them. It's a full stop. And so when you realize that it's a full stop in one of the greatest chapters of our samsara, now you start to realize that, what have I done? What am I doing? So for example, when I was talking to a group of people from another country, they were saying that how they want to come. They want to come to the monastery, and they want to practice the path, and they want to do all this. But then when I told them, there was an Anagarika who had passed away. They were surprised, as if our monastery is immortal, as if when you come to the monastery, no one dies, as if we come to the monastery and, it's always going to be, it's like you're putting like something on a conveyor belt. You put it on one end, out comes the perfect result. But when you realize that that's not life, that there is an end to this. There is a full stop that we can't stop. Now what? So, to inform those who may not know, last Thursday, so not this Thursday, but the previous Thursday, one of our Anagarikas was in a fatal car accident and therefore had lost their life. And we had the funeral last Saturday, hence why we didn't have a sermon last Saturday. And this was a person who had been in the monastery for 8 months. Give another 4 months and we would have a monk. I would have had a person that I could call a brother. But unfortunately, whatever happened, happened. So this is another reminder to all of you. Although there may be not so strong laws about seatbelts, please do wear seatbelts. Because your life is valuable. Each and every one of your lives are one of the most valuable things on earth. Diamonds are rare, I agree. Gold is rare, I agree. Titanium is rare, I agree. I don't know. Elements, there may be very rare elements, but there's something more rare than that. Number one, it's a human life. And number two, it's a human life dedicated to attaining Nibbana. So if we were to compare the value of your life versus the value of, say, diamonds, it's incomparable. Because why? The value of your life is infinite amount of diamonds. If you simply think about it, right? Your time as a human, your time practicing the path, you couldn't give diamonds and get more of it. You couldn't give money and get more of it. A simple way to think about this is, people work and they get money. We work 40 hours a week and say we get a pretty good amount of money. say every week you get 1 lakh, or every week you work, you earn, say, 200 pounds, dollars, whatever currency. So for 40 hours of your time, you get X amount of money. Can you give X amount of money and get those 40 hours back? So what value is your time? It can't be given a value. It's priceless. There is no price you can name. It's priceless. So thinking about it, right? So again, a reminder, please wear seatbelts. Whether you're the driver or a passenger, or whether you're somewhere on a car, please wear your seatbelts. For the reason that your life is valuable. Because the moment something happens, like unfortunately to one of our Anagarikas, he has lost one of his tickets out of samsara. So I don't want to carry on in a very gloomy and moody note. So I also want to say that they found at the site, they found his recorder. So for those of you who may not know, all of our Anagarikas and monks, we have a recorder where we store sermons to listen to throughout the day. And so on the accident side, they found his recorder. And guess what was playing? Ara Maitri, Novo Metta. So while he was in this vehicle, he was listening to Ara Maitri, which means he was contemplating, which means at the moment of impact, most likely, he was contemplating on Dhamma, which means hopefully he's gone somewhere good. And because he was so committed to attaining Nibbana, hopefully he would be somewhere where he will be able to listen to the Dhamma and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. But remember, all that is left that we can say is the words that come out of our mouths. Nothing more. All that he will take with him is what? The amount of money he has, or he had. Because we all live as though we're not going to die. It's normal. We live as though, you know what, we've got many hundred, we do think so, many hundreds of years. We have so many years to come. And therefore, we think that, you know what, I have to get the best of the best. So when we educate our children, we say, you know what, dear son, dear daughter, become what? Become the richest person alive. Become a doctor, become an engineer, become a lawyer, become all these great people, and so you can get so much money, so you can be happy. They say, these are things that you have heard as well. Your own parents have told you the same thing. You know, have a big property, a 3-story house with an indoor swimming pool. Now, then you'll be happy. Start wearing, and your friends tell you the same thing. Start wearing these sort of clothes, designer clothes, right? Those expensive shoes, wear those shoes. And so we tell our children, tell our friends to do all this. But at the end of the day, what do they take with them? No amount of shoes that they own will they be able to take after death. No amount of money will they be able, not a single cent and not a single penny will they be able to take away. But people do believe that though. For example, in ancient Egypt, the great pharaohs will be buried with their money, will be buried with their servants, will be buried with their spouses, will be buried with everything, hoping that in their afterlife that they'll have all these sort of things. Like, for example, when they are mummified, they take their organs and put them into small jars, so they will have these organs in their afterlife. Because they cross their fingers and hope, may this great pharaoh be able to live on as a pharaoh for the rest of eternity. But unfortunately, death takes all that away. See, the Grim Reaper isn't biased. The Grim Reaper isn't biased. Doesn't think, you're rich, you're poor, I should attack this one, not this one. I should take from this person, not from this person. Neither do they say, oh, you're a doctor, you're a lawyer, doctors are more important, so I'm going to take the lawyer. The Grim Reaper isn't biased. It takes what? Which one? Whatever, whoever, whenever, wherever. See, death / Mara has no bias. So there are people, say, for example, all of you who are in the monastery working hard for your own liberation. Do you think death will be thinking, saying, they're still on the path, they haven't attained Nibbana yet, we'll give them another 5 years. 5 years should be enough. Then I'll claim their life. Unfortunately, that's not how it works. See, when we take our lives and look at it at this angle, does it matter whether because I was talking to some children, and these children, they're doing exams and they're very stressed, and they're saying, they're like, it's a very important exam. Even though they're very young, they say it's a very important exam, I have to do well, or else, who knows what's going to happen in the future. But when you look at it from this angle, so what? You get 95% or 75%. What matters? Because at the end of the day, you're not going to take that with you. You can only take 2 things. What is that? The karma that you've done. Good and bad. It's the only thing you can take is one of the things that you can take is your karma. The good and bad that you've done. So if you've done lots of good things, well, you take that with you. But you can also take, unfortunately, the bad things you've done as well. Good karma, good vipaka. Bad karma, bad vipaka. And the second thing you take with you is your understanding of the Dhamma. How much of ignorance you have cleaned away, luckily you can take that with you. So again, not the Dhamma points. So you won't be born with saying, anicca, your first word is anicca. You won't be born like that, but you will have an understanding. You will have a tendency to understand. So these are 2 things you take with you. But because these 80 years or however many years we have in our life, because it seems like such a long time, we forget that these are the only 2 things we take. Because these are the only 2 things that we brought with us. Our merits, our demerits, these are the only things that we actually took with us. Not even a strand of hair. So when we leave, we leave the same way we came in, with nothing. You see, when you see it from this angle, because we don't know when our expiry date is. We all have a manufacturing date. Right? We all have a certificate saying, oh, this is so-and-so was born on this day. So-and-so probably brought this property on this day. So-and-so got married on this day. So we have a manufacturing date. But our expiry date? Unfortunately, our makers had forgotten to write it down somewhere. Forgot to write it down. Or maybe they did. Maybe they did. Maybe it's just we can't see it. They wrote it in the same ink as your skin. But we don't know. We don't know when it is. For example, this Anagarika, he didn't know. That morning, I was talking to some other Anagarikas, and they were saying that in the morning he took seal, he observed the precepts. One of his colleagues, or one of his fellow Anagarikas, was sick, so he made him a kanda, just like normal. He left the monastery after worshipping the Buddha, just like normal. He was in the car with another 2 others, just like normal. Never once did he think, something about today is different. It's dangerous. It is very dangerous. Our life is so fragile. Because we all have a fundamental understanding of anicca. We know that all causes have to come together for a result. Change one cause, the result itself, the manifestation itself is different. For example, we have millions of thin tubes that go through all parts of our bodies, capillaries. We all have these thin tubes that we call capillaries that go all across your body. All it takes is just one thing to block a single part, and that could lead to heart attacks, strokes. You can be paralyzed. All it takes is just one bit of fat just to block one small capillary. I remember that, I think we may have talked about this before as well, that we should be surprised that someone is still alive than if they had passed away. Because it's a miracle. Just imagine that, because we know causes have to come together to make a manifestation. Agreed? So imagine that we had to imagine you're carrying building blocks. Do you remember children used to play with these cube blocks, and they used to build towers with this. Imagine you're holding a tray of this and you walk around with this tray. So imagine everyone is walking around with a tray of blocks stacked upon each other. All it takes is for someone just to go, for these blocks to fall down. All it takes is someone just to push, or just even forget pushing. A gust of wind blows, and these blocks will fall down. So, if we take probability-wise, is it more probable, right? Is there a higher probability of this to be like this, or this to be fallen to parts? Because everything is always trying to look for a stable state, right? Therefore, these bricks, when it's like this, it's not stable. That's why something will fall to the floor, because this is not as stable as this. So everything is looking for stability. In other words, in science you call it entropy. So this is on a tray. This is a tray, and you have these building blocks. And if everything's looking to be stable, that means these blocks are actually looking for what? Looking to fall down. So are the causes that run through your blood. So are the causes that run through your body. So are the causes that help that manifest the body. So the fragility or how fragile life is, all it takes is just a gust of wind. So we should be more surprised what? I'm still alive. They are still alive. So when you meet someone and you should be surprised that they're still alive, because probability-wise, they should be not. It is very... Because when you really think about this, you realize even though we are in the monastery, because sometimes we feel that just coming to the monastery, that's enough. When I come to the monastery, Nibbana will happen. Yes. And no. Although you may not be doing... You may not think that I just need to follow and then, just be here and Nibbana will happen. Yes. But also, no. Causes have to align for something to manifest. So just realize that our time is limited. That our time that we have is limited. Now, even though, we normally say, the older generation will be the ones who go first, then the younger ones. So the other day, Amadasanahandru was able to, Amadasanahandru did a sermon to our monks and anagarikas and anagarikas. And he said, I want the next person to go to be under 18. That can't be. The under 18s? They're so young. Why? Because once you realize that even these people, even these young ones will pass away, then what can we say about ourselves? Even the younger ones among us pass away. That means what? The older ones? Of course. But we don't think that. We don't see it like that. We think, once I become 70, 80 years old, now I should be scared. But now I should be very positive, right? I'm going to do this. I'm going to survive until tomorrow. I'm going to be able to do this. Yes, we have to be positive while knowing the negative. Because being 100% optimist can lead to stupidity. The clouds are very gray outside, right? Are gray, and you can hear thunder. You can be an optimist and say, today it's not going to rain. Even though it's pretty obvious it will. So be an optimist, knowing knowing the bad. Now you're not an optimist nor pessimist, you're a realist. You know what is real. So yes, life is fragile, so we know that. So those among us who, so maybe not you all, but those who are listening online, if life is so fragile, if life can be taken away from us, if death, the Grim Reaper, claims life with no bias, then shouldn't we be scared? shouldn't we be thinking, if my life is going to be taken someday, am I doing what I need to be doing? So those of you who may still be committed to doing a job, those of you who be thinking, you know what, I have to earn all this money. I need to have a big house, a small house, a big car, a small car, a big job or a small job. No matter what, understand that in the end of the day, all you can take is two things: your merits and your understanding, or the amount of dhamma that you have comprehended. Those are the only two things. So which one is better, having a big car or a small car? Having a big house or a small house? Neither. At the end of the day, neither of them matter. All that matters is what? Your karma and your understanding. Because I hope this message will go into your heads and you realize that my life is as fragile as, it's as fragile as glass. Even like really thin glass. Those glasses that when you just tap, it shatters. So there are materials. It's that a part of it is so fragile that if you flick it, the entire material just shatters. It's like that. Our lives are even more fragile than that. But yet we don't feel it. So I hope this is something that you'll take and you'll realize that, am I doing what has to be done? Because we are trying to overcome death, aren't we? We're trying to overcome death. We're trying to become deathless, you can say. We're trying to find a way to overcome death. So we need to find this way to stop death from happening. Now, how do we do that? The first thing we have to do is we have to define what death is. What is death? You can say, well, death is when you are no longer alive. And what is it to be alive? This is me being alive. I'm able to see you all. I'm able to do what I want to do. So if we were to define what death is, so by now we all know that we all have a mind and a body. Agreed? So we know that our mind arises and passes away. So if I was to ask, what is death? On our timeline, right? If we were to make a timeline, it's a single line. Let me explain. So let me talk with Játi, then we can talk without Játi. Right? So death is when, right? There's a single point, and this body that used to work no longer works. And so we call that death. Then what's birth? Birth is when another body is able to facilitate the mind. Therefore, it arises again. So we can say birth and death to be a single line. And we can say that, birth is when a mind arises, and death is when the mind can no longer arise in that body. But then technically, isn't this birth? Isn't this death? Isn't that also death and also birth? Isn't that death? See, when we talk about death, death is continuously happening. Every mind arises and passes away. Every mind arises and passes away. So right now, you are dying. But right now, you are what? Being born as well. Every mind at this moment is being born, and every mind will pass away. But thanks to Játi, we feel, no. What is this? No. We have a long timeline. I'm still alive, and then one day, I'm going to kick the bucket, and then I'll be dead. But the difference between this and this point is, very little. All that it is that the mind arises due to the causes, and it manifests and then passes away. But unfortunately, this body, something happens to the body that can no longer facilitate the mind. Because the mind and body are interdependent. Meaning that the body needs the mind and the mind needs the body. Without either one, the other one won't be able to manifest. That's why your environment, right, or the way you keep yourself has an effect on your mentality as well. So for example, I remember my parents used to always say, Buddha, don't get angry, right? Because when you become angry, you'll become like ugly, katewe, right? Because your blood boils. Scientifically, we start to learn that blood doesn't boil when you're angry. However, there is truth to that. There is some truth to that. Because why? When your mind changes, it also changes the body. That's why when we are happy, we smile. But when we fake a smile, we feel happy. Because why? The mind affects the body affects the mind. That's why or else, why would people say take, for example, like drugs? Because when the body is feeling a difference, so does the mind. The mind affects the body affects the mind. So again, coming back. So these two, mind and body, are two things that are interdependent. When one falls, the other one also falls, right? When one can no longer facilitate the other one, that means the other one can't manifest. So when the body can no longer facilitate the mind can no longer arise in that body. Passes away. That's why when an arahant passes away, the mind passes away, therefore the body also. So at the end of the mind's, again, we're talking with Játi, at the end of the mind's lifespan, the body itself also passes away. So what is death? Death is when the body can no longer facilitate the rising of the mind. But we know what? We know that these points are also what? Birth and death. So we can say, it's a dog. The dog had been alive for 16 years, had a long life, and then it died. When it died, it was reborn as a cow. That's the story that we tell what? That's the story that we tell with Játi. But really, if we were to break it down, that is with Játi. When I mean with Játi, I mean due to ignorance, our mind feels that it's been a dog for 16 years and now it's a cow. However, when we look at every single mind has its own you can say. Now when I say the mind has a form, I don't mean that the mind changes its shape. What I mean is, throughout these minds, the dog's mind, or the mind, feels that what? It's a dog. And due to its actions, it reinforces or it feeds this feeling that it's a dog. But then it doesn't always do that though. For example, you know how as humans we're able to behave like animals? As in, I don't mean like to act like animals, but to behave like animals. So the word, the idea that comes to my head is in saying hello, right? Harak veda, gong veda, right? So you can behave like an animal, which means at that moment the mind is animalistic, you can say. The mind itself, although your form may be human, the mind is like an animal. And so if, say for example, let's take this human now. So if the human was to behave or it was to have a mind that was, say, doing balu at it, right? Or like dog behavior or a dog mindset. So although it's a human, it has a mindset of a dog. So if the human body can no longer facilitate the mind, what happens? Then this Játi or these conditions move on. And so we say, he died, she died, and unfortunately, because of her bad karma, they were reborn as a dog. But that is only with the body. But what about the mind? The mind is continuously changing. For example, no one person is constant. What I mean is, when you go to the Valley Malua, right? When you go to meditate, do you constantly think about the one idea? I don't know about you, huh? But I know about me. You sit down and your mind will go from one point to the other, to the other, to the other. Going from one idea to another, to another. I still remember the first few times you go to the Valley Monover, right? You go to start to meditate. You sit down and say you'll start thinking about something. And when you're thinking about something, you remember, say you were trying to say you got angry that day. Therefore, you start to think about, okay, why was I angry? Then you remember, it's because we were having cake. And you say, oh, cake, okay. What about cake? And you start thinking about chocolate cake, and then chocolate cake leads to a birthday party. A birthday party leads to, a friend of yours. That friend of yours reminds you of school. The school reminds you of this and reminds you of that. And then you go thinking, where did this all start from? A good point is, like, when you have a conversation with a friend, just try to understand that. Just try to look at where the conversation goes. What is the start of the next topic, and the next topic? I remember sometimes when you're with friends, and even among yourselves, you start talking. This is why it's important to understand who you associate. You start talking. One thing triggers someone else to say, "Oh, I don't know, this happened to me," and then you think, and then this conversation keep going, and again, one thing leads to the other, and you say, "Oh, this how that the other day I went home and this happened." It's very common to start off with the Dhamma and then end at a very, in a very worldly place. Whose fault? Whose fault? Cause and effect. We could just blame cause and effect, right? Because one idea leads to the other, leads to the other, leads to the other. Same thing here. See, what we have to really understand is that we're talking about a mind. We're not talking about beings. I'm not talking about a girl, a boy, a dog, a cat. We're talking about a mind. So when you look around, what do you see? We see beings. When really, what should we be seeing? We should be seeing minds. A dog mind, a cat mind, a human mind, a deva mind, a cow mind, a hating mind, a loving mind. Because every single mind is constantly different. For example, if I had a coin, right? If I had a coin and I was to toss the coin, to flip the coin, I have what chance for it to be heads and what chance for it to be tails? I have what chance for it to be heads and what chance to be tails? We've all learned that a coin toss is very fair because we have a 50-50%. So if you were to flip a coin, and it was heads and then tails, heads, tails, heads, tails, heads. That's possible. But then if we were to do it again, and it was heads, tails, we think something's wrong here. Because why? This is not random. There's something wrong with this coin. This coin something's wrong with the coin. But can't this happen? which one is more likely to happen? Which one is more likely to happen? The top one, right? The top one is more likely to happen. Because why? It's more random. The second one is more, it's in an order, right? Heads, more heads, and then tails. Actually, both of them are equally likely. Why? Because every time there's a 50% chance. When we say 50% chance, is it 50% chance? Is it 50% chance? Is it? It is 50% chance because of what? Because there's two sides. Yes. But it's a 50% chance because we can't do what? We don't know the causes. For example, the thick coins. So for example, I'm not very common, I don't know. Do we have what are the really thick Sri Lankan coins? Which one? 5 rupees. So for example, in the UK, we have a pound coin, which is, I think, about a couple of millimeters thick. So we say that, to flip this, say this 5 rupee coin, or 5 rupee, was it? 5 rupee coin, there's a 50% chance of landing heads and tails. But there's also a chance that's going to land on its side, right? So is it a 50% chance? They did a research where, I think it's from Stanford University, if I remember correctly, that actually, depending on what face was up when you flick the coin, say for example, it was heads that you had on top, that means head is actually 51. Now this makes us question, well, which one is more likely to happen? Neither. As in, both of them are equally as likely. Because every single time, it's a discrete variable, meaning it's discrete, meaning that the causes came together to give this result. This result doesn't affect this result. So the causes now come together to get this result. Again, this result does not affect the next one. But we have this, again, we talked about this last week, or last time. Storytelling. We love stories. Therefore we say, it's heads and heads and then heads and then heads. Something's wrong here, it can't always be heads. Although there's always this same chance. But when we look at the causes, like for example, if we were able to see all of the causes behind it before we flip the coin, can't we give a sure shot that it's going to be heads next? If we knew the causes? If we knew all the causes, yes. But unfortunately, we don't. Which brings us back to accidents. What are accidents? What are accidents? There are no accidents. I remember, you probably remember watching, what's it called? Kung Fu Panda? Yes? The fighting pandas and turtles and snakes and whatnot. I remember one of the characters, I think it's the wise turtle, says, there are no accidents. Because why? Everything is what? Cause and effect. If everything is cause and effect, how can something be an accident? So it wasn't an accident that there was 5 heads and 4 tails. Was that an accident, or that was supposed to be? That was supposed to be. Due to the causes, do we have the result? So are there accidents? There are no such things as an accident. So coming back to the mind. See, again, because of Játi, we like stories. So even when we talk about the mind, we say that one mind affects the other. One mind affects the other. So for example, if this mind ended with desire, the next mind will also have what? Is that true? Can that be true? If a single mind arises due to the causes, can that be true? So it's because of this mind, does the next mind arise with desire? Is that true? Huh? You see, it's not that because this mind was in desire, does the next mind have desire? Instead, this desire changes causes that can lead, not it will, that can lead the next mind to arise with desire. For example, if someone came and pushed you, and let's say you're someone with a short temper, someone came and pushed you, you'll become angry, let's say. So the mind arose with anger. You turn around and you see it was someone that you know, or you saw it wasn't purposeful. It was an accident. Now what? Are you still going to be angry? Are you going to go turn around and start shouting at the person for accidentally bumping into you? Now, where does anger go now? Are you still angry? No, maybe next you feel compassionate. So, does one mind lead, or does one mind makes or continues on the, or does one mind affect the other mind? Is one mind the cause for the next one? Except, no, it isn't. Instead, one mind's causes, or the one mind will change the causes, will alter the causes that may or make this next mind arise with the similar feeling. So when you think that you are angry for the last 5 minutes, were you angry for the last 5 minutes? When you say, you go to your Guru Hamus, right, your teacher's meeting, and say, like, Swaminathan, I was, this happened to me. I was very angry. I was angry for 5 minutes. Was it the same anger that continued for the 5 minutes? It can't be. Instead, it's one mind arose and passed away, giving the next mind, leaving some causes, and the next mind also arose with anger. Next mind, and the next mind, and the next mind. See, if one mind was to contribute to the next mind, that means if we started our sansar with anger, we will always be angry. Or if we started with desire, we will always be with desire. But instead, that's not how it works. Instead, one mind can only will arise and pass away. The next mind will only arise due to the causes. So just like the flipping of the coin, whether it's head or tails, if you flip the coin and it's heads, 50% chance. Then you flip the coin as tails. But we take the stories. Because of Játi, we connect and we say, you know what, I was angry for the last 5 minutes, and then, and then I remembered what you told me, Venerable Sir, that I should be practicing compassion. So, for that moment, I started meditating, and I started contemplating on noble metta. These are stories. So, were you angry for the last 5 minutes? No. Every mind arises independently. See, just try to see this in the people around you, in the animals and the minds around you, that all minds arise independently. But we're very likely to say, you know what, this was his mind, her mind, their mind, right? The dog's mind was like this, the cat's mind was like this. There is no difference in the cat's mind and the dog's mind and the human's mind. Because the minding process is the same. The minding process, the process of a mind to arise and pass away, is exactly the same as everyone else's. Because why? What is the purpose of the mind? To identify the stimulus, whatever triggered the mind. That's the purpose of the mind. So, does the cat want to identify the cat stimuluses, and the dog identifies the dog stimuluses? Is that how it works? Stimulus, whatever the stimulus is, dog, cat, dinosaur, whether it's a stimulus, because stimuluses are what? Sight, sound, smell, taste, touch. So you tell me, were you angry for the last 10 minutes? And then coming back to the topic that we started off with, if so, then what is death? Does death exist? Does death exist? The mind passes away, the mind arises. The mind passes away, the mind arises. So, does death exist? Did you see how profound the dhamma is? So we start off by saying, we should be scared of death. Then we come up and we say, what, death doesn't exist. What are we talking about here? What is, so to understand that, what is death? Death is when the mind arises, well, passes away. Conventionally we say when the body and mind separate, the person is dead. But do we know when the mind separates from the body? Do we know? So clinically, if the brain has died, we say the person is dead. But what happens if, theoretically, without the brain, the mind rises? Then is the person dead? Do you see that to overcome death, we have to understand death. To overcome death, we have to understand death. When you understand death, you realize what? There is no death. But then you'll say, if there's no death, then how can an arahant pass into parinibbana? Why? Because if there's no such thing as death. Well, there is. What is that? The mind arises and the mind passes away. The only reason that it continues is what? Behind all of this, there are causes that lead to the next mind. That due to certain factors, the mind arises. But for an arahant, for as long as it has the body, the causes are there. But when the body can no longer facilitate the mind no longer pushes, or the mind no longer changes the causes, so it creates another new body. Instead, what? The energy dissipates. The energy goes back into what? It's pure, chaotic form, i.e., pure energy, in its most stable form, pure energy. See, what we do, what our minds continuously do, is take this energy and say, I don't want it to be pure. I don't want it to be stable. And we bunch it together and we throw it back up. We say, we take what we see and we take the energy and we throw it back up and say, I want to see again. I want to hear again. I want to do all this again. Because why? Because what is ignorance? Ignorance is the idea that there is something separate. That there is something that, again, I, self, Játi, exists. It's out there somewhere. So as it goes on, right? As it goes on, when it comes to Játi, or ignorance is not that Játi exists. Ignorance is that separation exists. So therefore, it's looking for separation. But when there is no separation, what happens? Because you cannot separate in this world. So the mind is constantly under this vexation. And when it can no longer resist, can no longer survive, the mind goes insane. And then feels as though something is separate. Now, the mind wanting this really likes this feeling that it's separate. So what does it do? It bunches up this energy and says, I want this feeling again. And therefore, let's say, when it comes to say a person with ignorance, the mind passes away and say the body also can no longer facilitate, because it wants this feeling again. What does it do? The mind continues this, creates another vessel for the mind to arise. So this is very theoretical. I understand. This is very, theory upon theory upon theory. But but we need to take this practically as well. Because remember, this is a very practical path. So what should we do? Understand and look at the world around us. Look at the people around us. Look at the minds around us and understand this. Because remember, at the end of the day, the entire purpose of all this is to do what? It's to understand the world. Understand the world so we can be what? So we can be happy. So this mind will be able to understand the reality. Therefore, no longer can the mind feel the fires of suffering. Játi, jara, marana, shoka, parideva, dukkha, domanassa, upayasa. And 11 great fires. Because if you really think about this 11 great fires can only be if you have the storyteller in your mind. Because birth or born, the question is, who's born? Death, the question is, who died? Who became sick? Who grew older? Who is sad? Who is crying? Who is lamenting? Who is under pain? Again, there's always a who. But once you get rid of Játi, now do you have the 11 great fires? Can you have the 11 great fires? When you don't have a storyteller, now all that happens is what? A mind arises, the mind passes away. Not that the mind arises and then it feels that, this mind, like, I'm now X years old. I'm becoming closer to death. I'm almost, I can feel death coming by. That's all what? Job of the storyteller. Job of what? Játi. Just try to write a story without the words like I or he, she, or a person or an animal or an object. Can you? Let's write a simple story. Okay, ready? I saw a young girl holding a balloon. Now, using your understanding, turn this into reality. Turn this into reality. Let's remove the parts that aren't real, right? Saw without the storyteller, can we tell stories? I saw a young girl holding a balloon. Okay, let's say this young girl let go of the balloon. The balloon was floating away. The girl started crying. And I felt so bad that I went and bought another balloon for this young girl. Now try to tell the story without Játi. You can't. Because even saw, right? Because we were left with saw, right? I saw. Well, that mind arose and then passed away. Even that itself we can't talk about. So without Játi, can we write a story? Then the question is, can an arahant write a story? Can an arahant write a story? What do you think? Alright. Hands up if you think yes, he can write a story. Hands up if you think he can't write a story. Hands up if you don't know, or you didn't put your hand up. You see, this is all about feeling. It is all about feeling. So the arahant, in his own mind, won't feel the story. Because he can't feel the story doesn't mean he can't write the story. He will still be able to say, I saw a young girl holding a balloon. But he won't feel it. Feel it as though I saw a young girl holding a balloon. Instead, he'll realize the reality of it. but he will still be able to tell a story. Again, this is why this is always a battle between knowledge and feeling. Knowledge and feeling, it's a battle between these two. Because even though we know that this can't be, we feel it. But Arahant doesn't feel it, but knows that this can happen. So who knows? You could be reading stories written by Arahants. Could be. But because of Játi, we feel that this is the story. That this is what the story is. I was walking and I saw this and I saw that. I met this, I met that. But when you get rid of Játi, you get rid of the story. Then you're able to live one mind at a time. Because, right, I looked in mirror, right, and I looked old. That is what? Stories. I am sick. I was very healthy, right? Say for example, I was able to eat chocolate until I got diabetes. Now I can't eat chocolate. I'm sick. Or I used to be able to do all this, but now I'm sick. Or even like, I like the color. Okay, pen's blue, so blue. But they gave me something that's red. I'm sad. All of these are side effects of the initial disease, Játi. So by just removing Játi, you're removing the story. Now, blue, red, green. So instead of if you get rid of Játi, now instead of I like blue but I got red, it's just okay. I got what I got. The mind arose and I see a blue pen. Okay. The mind arose and they removed the blue pen, gave me a red pen. Okay. But if I have a preference, if Játi is there, now I like my blue pen, right? I had this blue pen for some time now. It's my favorite color. But then someone stole my blue pen and then I was left with a red pen. Come on, I have a red pen now, right? It's okay, I have a red pen now. But I still like that blue pen. That's all stories of what? Játi. But for someone who realizes the reality of the world, now what? Okay. They will say, I have a blue pen. But what do they feel? Do you feel that, okay, causes come together and I have this effect? I can see a blue pen. Can I use it? Oh, great. Because when you really look at it, right, it really feels as though I am writing something on the board. Do you not see me write a sentence on the board? Right? I wrote that on the board, right? Do you see? When you really think about it, Játi seeps into all corners. You have to be very aware. I'm writing. You saw me write that, right? Anyone saw someone else come and write this for me? Oh, I wish. No, you all saw that. It's as if The ink came from this pen that wrote this. But that's a story of what? You know, my handwriting, right, used to be like, now it's like, I have improved my handwriting, right? Again, this is a story of what? Because handwriting comes from the hand or the pen? No, it comes from the muscles, right? How, when you realize the reality of all this, how do you, like, it's so, see, only when you're mindfully aware. When you are mindfully aware, do you realize the reality? Or if not, you just see the story. My handwriting has changed. Wow. My son, he used to be like this. Now he's changed, right? He's become better, right? He's become worse. All due to who? It's the child, right? The child changed, right? All due to who? Wrong. All due to Játi, the storyteller. So, who died? So today is his, 7 days ago, he was buried, right, in the monastery. Who died? Who died? His name was Kasun, right? Kasun died. He was here for 8 months. He was at the monastery as an anagarika. He was very meritorious. He did this. He was very helpful, right? He was very kind, right? But unfortunately, he passed away. He was in a car accident. So who died? See, this storyteller is what creates the stories. This storyteller is what makes us feel that this is what had happened, and I feel this strong connection towards him, right? And therefore, what? It's very emotional. Thanks to who? The storyteller. You go to the doctors tomorrow because, I don't know, you have a cough. The doctors say, oh, it looks like you have a terminal illness. You've got a lung cancer, right? By the stage, it's like a stage 3 cancer. You have only a couple weeks left to survive. I only have a couple weeks to survive. I'm only going to survive another 3 weeks. I just practice my path, right? Now, all of this is what? Storyteller. See, whether you have a terminal illness and you are going to pass away in 3 weeks, whether you don't have a terminal illness and you're going to pass away in 3 weeks, but one of them feels much more worse than the other. But in reality, the mind arises, the mind passes away. The next mind arises, the next mind passes away. See, we have to murder the storyteller. We have to murder the storyteller. Murdering, we're not supposed to murder. I refrain from harming any. No, but our job is to murder the storyteller. Unfortunately, this storyteller, every time you try murdering it, it'll come back. Why? Because the storyteller is a projection of what? Of what? Storyteller. He's a storyteller. He's the one who... A great way of seeing the storyteller to be the person, or not the person, let me rephrase that, as the thing that creates suffering. See, it's very hard to talk without using Játi, because again, we need the Játi for the stories. Is that, when something bad has happened, or when something bad will happen, you will only suffer when you remember it. For example, this is what I do to children, right? When they've done their exams, right? When they've done their exams and they're enjoying their time, all I have to go and say, you have your results coming. And they're like, results? But they're enjoying their time until I say results. And they go, Aiyo, why do you have to remind me now? I was having so much fun, right? Now you've ruined my mindset. It's something I used to do at school as well. Like when other children have done exams, and you just go like, your results are coming out in 2 weeks. Thank you for reminding us. Because they only suffer when what? When they're reminded. For example, say you're going on holiday. You all are on the holiday, but those are those who may still be working and that are on holiday. When you remember, you have 2 days left. Can you enjoy those 2 days? No, because in 2 days that it's going to be all over. So you can't enjoy your holiday due to who? Due to the storyteller. You see, because people don't understand that it's Játi that's the issue, they always look to satisfy this. So for example, they say, if you're having a holiday, it doesn't matter how long your holiday is. The only 2 things that matters is, number 1, because we can only remember 2 things: the peak and the ending. The peak and the ending. On any experience, the only 2 things you remember is the peak and the ending. So for example, let's say let's say this is the first day you came to the monastery. First day you came to the monastery. Let's say you came for the day and you left. And let's say you come on a Dakkiniya day. You'll leave the place remembering what? How it started. How the peak of it, which was most likely going to be the procession, and then the end of the day. So if you were to leave and say everyone was smiling, or everyone was was talking with you, or let's say I found out that lots of people like the roti at the end of the day. I don't know why, but the roti is what makes people. It's what they remember in the last bit of the day. And those are 2 things they remember. And then if you remind them, they say, yeah, we had a sermon. They say, yeah, we did this, we did that. But the 2 things they remember is what? The procession and the roti. So the food that they give at the end. Because why? The storyteller remembers what? The mind will always the storyteller will always tell the story with the peak and the ending. That's why it's like all stories, you remember what? The problem that they faced and how they overcame the problem, and then the ending. That's why usually, this long series, the long series, like, I don't know, like you're watching a long TV series, you're always looking for what? And how they end, how they will spend the rest of their life. So the last episode usually will be, this person got married, this person did this person got this job. Why? To give you a good ending. And so you remember you remember it. A good example that they normally use is some TV shows that the first, second, third episode is really good, but then the last episode is so bad that they don't watch it again. So for example, I think the good example would be, like, say, Game of Thrones. The first few seasons were all so good and great, but then the last season was so bad that no one watched the first season again. Because why? The ending, the storyteller reminds the ending and the peak. So again, we have to, so this storyteller, you can say the storyteller is like a hologram. Right? The storyteller is a hologram. So no matter how much you try to kill the storyteller, it's a hologram. You can't do anything to a hologram. Where should we attack? My drawings are terrible, I agree. But, switch. The plug. The source. I.e., what's the source? Ignorance. You get rid of ignorance. Now, do you have to get rid of Játi? Do you have to get rid of storyteller now? You get rid of ignorance, storyteller dies. So all we have to do is get rid of the power source. Get rid of ignorance. Get rid of the understanding or the feeling, the view, the drushti, or the view that there is something separate here. There is a story here. See, once you get rid of the story, or once you get rid of the power source, once you get rid of the story, this is why they say an arahant can't live in the world for more than 7 days unless they ordain. Because it's like being in a mental asylum. Everyone's talking about all these stories and stories and stories and stories, but they know that these don't exist. It's like being in a mental asylum and then curing. Now you're living amongst who? Crazy people. Now, it's very difficult, isn't it? It's like trying to live, like being a very mature adult and living with children, with young children, with hundreds of young children. Some people find it very difficult. Same thing. That's why they always look for someone with a similar mindset. That's why they'll go and they'll join they'll join the sasana. Because why? The sasana does what? Kills Játi, gets rid of the storyteller. Because every person with ignorance loves these stories. Inside of us right now, we have the storyteller telling us a story that, there's a hologram, it's a plug, it's connected. I have to do this, I have to do that. Tomorrow I have to do this, tomorrow I have to do that. Yesterday I did this, yesterday I did that. And we have this amazing story. That's why people write an autobiography, right? Autobiography. Because why? They can connect the dots and say, hey, this is what's happened, and this happened, and that happened, and this happened, and that happened. But that's all who? Storyteller. Get rid of the storyteller. Now, do you have biography? Do you have now an autobiography? Now you can only talk about what? This moment. I see a red pen. I now see a blue pen. I now see a red pen. I now see a blue pen. I can write with this. I can write with that. Because why? You have Rupa, Vedana, Sanya, Sankhara, Vijnana. You perceive. That's it. I perceive this. I perceive that. I perceive what I'm hearing. I perceive what I see. So, I have a question here on the dress. So for those of you who may not have been here, a couple weeks back I showed a dress, a golden white and black and blue. Unfortunately, we don't have the dress to show you again, but I hope you guys, I hope you all remember the dress. So there was a dress displayed on the screen. Some of us saw black and blue, some of us saw gold and white. Now, what we first have to understand is that color is what? Color is what? It's a process. Color is a process that can only happen if what? The causes align. So for example, you can only see this red in the red pen if the causes are there. For example, if I dip this into like blue paint, now can you see a red pen with blue paint? No, now you see it's blue. So color is always a process here. So coming back to the picture, we all have, I want to say the same stimulus, but understand it's not the same. Right? I'm going to say same for now, but understand it's not the same stimulus here. So there is some color on the screen. So for example, if we had the picture, I could have zoomed in and showed you that we just have a single color on that. We all see the same color. We all see the same light, you can say. But when that light comes and enters our retina, our eyes, and hits our cornea and hits the senses, we'll say for now, hits the senses, that senses sends electric impulse to the brain, and the brain computes and the mind perceives. And so the reason why two people see two different things can be a whole different bunch of reasons. One reason could be there could be two different or the sensor could be more sensitive in one than the other. For example, we can only see three colors, R, G, and B, right? So in Guru Hamdar Simon's, you've talked about this. He's talked about this quite often, that we can only see R, G, and B, red, green, and blue. And the way they have tested this is by taking an eye and plugging it into a computer, then shining a red light, and they see one bump. Then they shine a yellow one, and they see two bumps. And they shine a blue one, and they see another bump. So they've tested and said our human eyes can see R, G, and B. Then they take, say, a spider's eye. Now they shine light and they say that, some spiders can see R, G, and B. Some spiders can also see Y as well, yellow. So I think it's called, we are trichromatic. I think that's the official word they use for three colors. But some animals can see four. Some animals can only see two. There are animals that can only see one color. So they see it all in one color. So it could be something to do with senses. It could be something to do with the interpreter, the brain. So it's not that the people who see gold and white, when they see black and blue, they see, so for example, when they see this, they don't see gold. And when the people who see black and blue, when they see this, they don't see blue. Right? It's not that their eyes, it's not that they have some weird vision, right? That there's something wrong with their eyes. No, this is the way they perceive. This is the process they see. So it's not something that is due to color blindness, because everyone can see this is blue, and everyone can see that this is like a goldish color, or this is also a goldish color. It's not color blindness, but except there are something in the perception, or some causes are different. Therefore, some of us see black and blue, some of us see gold and white. So I did the same thing with another group of people, and most of those saw gold and white. And then I shared another group of people, and then I got 50-50. And I got one another 75% gold and white, the other 25% black and blue. And then I did have the question. Well, it could be like most people saw black and blue. Could have been because of the lighting and all this stuff. And once you perceived it once, you now continuously perceive it to be black and blue. But there's no way to test that. So, in reality, was the dress black and blue? Or was the dress gold and white? Well, the question is, what is real? What color is real? And then we can answer that question. So, I hope that answers this question. So the question says, can you please explain how the audience saw different colors? Where you projected a slide with a dress which I said to be dark blue and black striped dress, as well as others in the audience, while a few interrupted the same as gold and white stripes. I felt this could not be explained due to color blindness. So it's not color blindness, it's due to the process. So I hope that gives a clearer answer. Does anyone, it's still blurry in the answer? No? Okay. So I do remember I gave you homework 2 weeks ago, right? See, this is why I remember homework, because I don't like homework either. So like minds attract. So your task was to have, I think it was habits, or 3 things you want to change or do better. Am I correct? I don't remember, because I give lots of people different tasks, right? And I remember, I think you had to mark down. And you had to mark down how many times you did that activity. I have that slight memory. Again, my memory isn't the best. It's getting better. That was it, right? Yes? See, if you all said no, then I'll be confused and I have to ask you guys. But I know that there's something to do with that. Yes? Yes? Okay. So I know that hopefully most people have done it, right? Now I want you to see which ones that you were able to do so for the last 2-3 weeks, that you were able to do continuously. Now, because you've done it for around 3 weeks, now that's pretty much a habit. That's something that's going to stick with you. Now look at the ones that you were very, I did it once and I don't like doing it. It was too hard, too frustrating. And now using the ones that you didn't do as many of, I want you to make that easier. One bit easier. And so what we're doing is, so you had a list, I think was it 3, wasn't it? 3 things? So you had 3 things. One of them you did 10 times. The other one you did 7, but the one you did just 2 times. I want you to take this one and make it easier. Make it more doable. So alter it and make it easier. And make it so that you receive a reward at the end. Because our mind likes rewards. Right? So for example, let's say it is I'm going to do half an hour chanting Buddha Guna. Then you say, if I do this 7 times, I will offer a pirikara to Saminase. Now, because we like offering, now whenever you do 7 times, let's make it easier. Every time I do it, I'll offer a pirikara to Saminase. Now, this is something that you enjoy doing. So you do 30 minutes and you do offer. You make an offering the next day. Or it could be, I'll do 30 minutes and then I will just make sure it's something that is productive, right? Don't do something that's not productive. So it's not going to be like, I'm going to do 30 minutes of Buddha Sajjana, right? Buddha chanting. And then I'm going to watch the latest movie. No, don't do something like that. But do something productive. Something that you enjoy doing. Maybe a merit activity. Maybe something that will, again, further your journey. So make it more simple. So instead of doing the half an hour, maybe change it to 15 minutes. Because 15 minutes is different to half an hour, right? 15 minutes is like, half an hour is way too much. See, who's telling you that? Storyteller. Okay, so your task this week is that. See. And remember, your life is very, very, very valuable, right? So make sure you do wear seatbelts wherever you go. Right? Even though in Sri Lanka the seatbelt rule is flexible, let's say it's not there, it's just flexible. Please do wear seatbelts. It's very important because your life is very valuable. And remember, you lose it now, the chances are you won't get it back. And just say you don't die, right? Say you don't pass away. Say you get paralyzed. Or say, what's worse? You lose your hearing. You lose your sight. Now all you can do is what? Stay in bed and remember what you have learned and try to do merits in the mind. Because if you lose a sense of hearing and you lose your sense of sight, doing merits and listening to Dhamma is impossible, or next to impossible. Because remember, to understand the Dhamma, or to be able to have the initial understanding of Dhamma, you need your ears. Right? So stay safe on the roads. I don't need to tell you this, right? You guys are all very responsible adults. It's children who need to know this. And also, thank you for the question. Like, if any one of you have any other questions, please do leave on the table, and I will answer them if I can. Okay. Then, today is Dakineya, a reminder. So we have to end very soon. Okay. So let's take a few moments to transfer our merits and conclude. Let's take a moment to transfer all the merits we acquired by making offerings to the infinite virtues of the Noble Triple Gem, chanting pure Dharma, and engaging in various meritorious deeds today. So first and foremost, let's remind ourselves how incredibly fortunate we are to be in receipt of the Lord Buddha's teachings. And with immense gratitude, let's transfer the merits to the Bhikshu, Bhikshunis, Upasakas, Upasakas, who since time immemorial have protected and preserved the sublime teaching of the Buddha and passed it down through a generation of the noble lineage in the form of the Tripitaka, which is thankfully available to us today to study, to understand, to comprehend Dhamma. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to all the members of the Mahasangha present throughout the world, including all of the chief prelates of the chapters, who have dedicated their lives to a noble path and committed themselves to betterment of all sentient beings, reminding ourselves among them will be the monks and nuns residing in local temples and nunneries, who have always been by your side through thick and thin, come rain or shine. Let's take a moment to transfer merits to the monks resident in the monastery, to all the Anagarikas and Agarikas attached to the monastery. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits and express our gratitude to those who make great effort to disseminate the teaching of the Buddha, be that by transliterating sermons, share them out with others, inviting others to join them. May through the power of all the merits, if any have been born in the woeful plains, may they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May by the power of the merits, may they abstain from the meritorious deeds. Fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the noble eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer our merits that we've acquired to our devotees, friends of the monastery, who for sake of merits continue to sustain the Mahasangha. This includes all of you who have contributed to the construction of the monastery, those of you who provide the Mahasangha with shelter, alms, robes, medicines, as well as those who pass on their know-how and extend their well wishes. May the power of the merits, may they abstain from the meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to our mothers, fathers, husbands and wives, brothers and sisters, sons, daughters, grandparents, uncles, aunts, cousins, nephews, nieces, friends and acquaintances, employees and employees, our elders, and to all those who've helped us, supported us, assisted us in shape or form. By the power of these merits, may they be human and physical mental ailments, may they overcome any obstacles in their spiritual progress, may they abstain from the meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the wayful path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer our merits to the Devas, Brahmins, spirits, demons, primarily the Sakadeva, as well as numerous gods and deities who are committed to protect and fulfill the Sambhasasana. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to our guardian deities who keep a watchful eye over us and keep us out of harm's way. May the power of the merits, may they prosper in divine power and wisdom. May they abstain from the meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the eightfold path, and attain the supreme bliss of Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to our ancestors who predeceased us, to all that's been friends, family to us in this infinitely long journey in samsara. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to all those who have helped us, support us, assist us in any shape or form. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to the armed forces, all forces as well as the police force, who have sacrificed their lives to protect the peace and harmony of our nation. May all those who lost life in the war, be the friend or foe, rejoice in the merits acquired today. Let's also take a moment to transfer merits to all those who lost their lives in natural calamities such as tsunamis, earthquakes, landslides, pandemics, reminding ourselves among them will be those who have been friends and family to us in this infinite long journey in samsara. May by the power of the merits, may if any have been born in the woeful plane, may they redeem themselves and be born in the blissful plane. May by the power of the merits, may they abstain from meritorious deeds, fulfill the meritorious deeds, fulfill the eightfold path, and attain supreme bliss in Nibbana. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And finally, let's all resolve, may the empower and the blessing of all the merits acquired throughout the day We have been witness the event of many hundreds of thousands of Arhat nuances, Arhat main nuances in this very land itself. And finally, may through all the through all the merits we require for the other day, you and I and everyone who made this program a success become an Arhat nuance or Arhat main nuance in its very life in the era of the Gautama Supreme Buddha itself. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. May the blessings of Noble Triple Gem be with you all. The Mahasangha will now transfer their blessings to all of you. Raga ginnen midetva, Dvesha ginnen midetva, Moha ginnen midetva, Nibbana parama sukhayin sukita taravetva, Nibbana parama sukhayin sukita taravetva, Mamada siyalu loka siyalu satvayo, Nibbana parama sukhayin sukita taravetva, Nibbana parama sukhayin sukita taravetva, Nibbana parama sukhayin sukita taravetva. Raga gini niveva, Dvesha gini niveva, Moha gini niveva, Nivan sapa labeva, Nivan sapa labeva, Nivan sapa labeva. Tunrange Susyananta Mahaguna Belin, Siloka Silasatioma, Nibbana Paramasokin, Sukitaravetva, Sadhu, Sadhu, Sadhu.